Back in the day, children's minds were shaped, informed, and inspired by some of the most educational magazines ever published.
But not for Loop and Larry.
Huh? Join us as we dig deep into the zany world of Mad Magazine!
In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
81st explosion.
And yeah, there we go.
I don't know why we keep doing that.
I don't know either. We should just let it go.
I know we can't. We've done it 81 times. We're now too deep into this. We can't stop. So ridiculous. Anyway.
Hey everybody, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry.
And this is Guardians of Geek, episode 81. On our trail to get to 100 episodes, which I don't know if we think we'll get this season, but we're already on our second episode. It's only October. It's early October.
Yep. And we actually have our third episode already planned and a date for it. So we're moving right along.
Pretty much. And then all those 10-minute episodes we decided to do to get to 100. Like that.
Yes. It'll make it really easy that way.
Yeah, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Hey kids, it's time for Loop and Larry's Totally Tubular Top Pop!
All right, this is Top Pop, where we just talk about geeky stuff what's going on right now, stuff that maybe we're into, anything that's just sort of like influencing us at the time. And I think I have to start out with every year. I love October, and you know that I'm a huge October fan. And every year I do my third.
Let me just stop you for a second. Not many people are fans of a particular month. You don't hear a lot of people
it's my
saying,
favorite month.
I'm a real June fan. I wait 12 months, 11 months to get to June. I can't. You don't hear that very often. So good for you.
I am a fan of the month. There's just like everything happens in October and it's great. So every last like this is my 6th year. I've been doing the 31 horror films of October. So I'm not doing a daily film. I'm doing 31 films in the month so I can get ahead. So as of this taping, I have watched 10 of my 31.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you kind of have to get ahead. If you get too far behind, it gets the pressure mounts.
Yep. And as of this recording, we're only 7 days into October. So the fact that you watched 10 in the last 7 days, that's something. That's
pretty impressive. It's pretty good. So I haven't decided. Usually I do a couple franchises in this one. This one I decided to do shorter franchises because last year I did Saw, and that took up half of my, that was 10 of my picks, right? So I'm trying to do more single films, but then a couple shorter franchises that like an It or something that's only a couple movies or whatever. So I'm doing Insidious, which is 5 movies, which I didn't realize there was 5 movies in that series, but apparently there is. So I've
going.
I've watched the first 3 Insidious so far.
Okay.
The Changeling, which is such a good movie.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a great. I something about early 80s, late 70s, the slow burn on a movie, in a horror movie back then.
And George Scott is just so straight and when he breaks down at the end, it's great. I just love it.
It's so good. I've watched The New Salem's Lot.
Oh,
it's on Max.
How is it? Real
good.
Quick.
I liked it. It has mixed reviews, but I thought it was good. I've read the book as well, so I don't know. And then when I'm watching it, I couldn't remember if it happened in the book or not. So I don't know. But it seems like it was probably a longer movie they cut down. There's probably a little bit more development in it than there was. I watched the Witchfinder General.
Where did you pull that one from?
Every year I try to do a Vincent Price movie. Yeah. And so this was the Witchfinder General is the one I picked for this year. It was
gotcha.
But I'll probably do another one of his as I go. Okay. I'm watching The Guardian, which is the guy that directed The Exorcist.
William Friedkin.
It's got a plant sort of tree based sort of thing. And then
Okay.
Vamp. Do you remember Vamp from
Oh
the 80s?
yes, from the
Yeah,
80s. Yep.
it's a good movie. I hadn't watched it in a long time.
Yeah.
I don't see Chris Makepeace a lot in movies anymore,
Yeah,
but
you don't really. I don't know whatever happened to him. We should do a.
he was
a
in
whole
the
episode
actual. I
on him.
watched the extras on it. And there was like a little doc on it, and he's in it. And he said that he stopped acting and that they had to pull him back to do that
Oh
specifically.
really?
Like, so it was kind of interesting to see him again. And then I watched Hell House Origins. I don't know if you've watched
Oh,
any of the Hell House
I haven't
series.
seen any of them, but
Yeah,
I'm intrigued by them, but I've never actually watched them.
it's like a found footage type
Right.
movie,
Right.
but it's not
Are
bad.
they
It's
are they
it's
about
okay.
like a haunted house, like a haunted attraction or something?
Yeah, it's like a haunted like old like hotel.
Okay.
But this one goes further back than that, but it takes place in present day, but it's this old like house that somebody that's connected to the thing. It's a whole thing. You have to kind of watch it,
Okay.
but it's
So you do have to see them all, is what you're saying. They're all connected.
yeah, I think so. And then Popcorn was the last one I just watched.
Oh,
So
I love popcorn.
yeah, I haven't seen
That
that in a
is
long time either. I was like, actually, that might have been the first time I've seen it. It's parts of it seemed familiar, but I couldn't remember if I'd seen it in full. But
I actually own the steel book of that.
Popcorn.
Yep. I love that movie. I think, well, I mean, anything that takes place in a movie theater, it's all like movie based. It's kind of my thing. So you got
Yeah.
horror movie and movie theater all in one
Yeah, no,
movie.
it's good. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good flick. But
Yeah.
so that's what I've gotten to so far, and I've got a few others like that'll probably I might do the Poltergeist. I'm not sure. I don't know how many there are in that like collection, but
Poltergeist? I think that there are maybe three.
yeah, there could be a
Feel like?
fourth, but I think there's three. But I might slip those in there. But I've
Yep.
watched Poltergeist 1. I'm trying not to repeat any movies from the other years, so
Yeah.
I watched Poltergeist 1 last year, so I could jump right into 2 if I feel like it. So
And now, just to make sure we're clear on this, you're watching Poltergeist, not Poultrygeist.
yeah, not
From
Poltergeist. I might
from
throw
Trauma.
Poltergeist in there.
You should throw a couple of trauma
I
movies.
really should. I should throw a couple in there just for the sake of argument. But yeah, anyways, it's cool. It's fun to watch movies, either like revisit movies like Vamp I haven't seen, or stuff I've never seen, like the Witchfinder General. Like
Yep.
like, and there's just different levels of whatever. But it's been really fun. It's been good.
Good. Well, speaking of things that we haven't ever watched before, we can now start talking a little bit about Agatha All Along,
Oh
because
yeah,
it is also October and we have never seen that before. So let's talk about our initial reactions. I think that they're up to episode 4.
4. I think.
4, yeah, 4 as of this taping. 4 of them have dropped. Loop, you've watched the first 3, you said?
First 3, yeah, and because I'm
Okay.
watching all these horror movies, it puts me behind. Like that's like half my time is, and then baseball's on right now too. And my team's in the playoffs, so it's like it's a whole thing. And they lost today, and I'm not happy about it. But anyway, that's a whole other issue.
This is true.
There.
Well, I have to say right off the top, I feel like this might be my all-time favorite Marvel series.
Oh,
so far.
really? Okay.
I love this thing. I've watched all 4 episodes twice. Now, because that's what I do sometimes. But I think there's a lot of reasons why I really like it. First of all, Catherine Hahn is just
Yeah,
awesome.
she's great.
She's
Like,
just so good. But the whole cast is really good.
Yeah.
Joe, oh no, I can't remember his last name. Joe Locke, who plays Teen in the movie, is phenomenal. I don't really know him as an actor. I'm not sure where he's been before, but I think he's great. But the other thing is that they launched it at the perfect time in October.
that was
it is,
perfect.
It is a perfect show to watch, and it finishes. I think it wraps up like on the 30th. Like or right before Halloween. So it's the whole month of October. You get this like kind of horror-ish comedy show, which is perfect timing. I just love it. I just think it's so fun. Like it's got elements of scary in it, but like humor and good backstory and drama and lots of intrigue. I don't know what the stories are with these witches and what's happened between Agatha and Aubrey Plaza's character. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Roe or something?
I can't remember it.
Something like that. What their story is, I don't know, and who Teen really is. Like, it's just there's so many questions, and it looks really cool. I don't know. I love it. I'm so excited.
it's great. It's so far so good, and I haven't seen the 4th episode, but it's like it's got a good setup. It's like very Wizard of Oz-ish in a way, like
but much darker.
Yeah, much darker. But it's so far so good. I think it's been good.
Yep.
It reminds me like not in story or theme, but like in general, like when the Hawkeye came out and it was
Oh
around
yes,
Christmas and it was a
yes.
Christmas based show. So it's like the holiday theme shows. I think that's what they need to do with Marvel. Every movie's a holiday.
Yep. It works. Like it
Yeah.
because you're already feeling in that mood, right? Like
Yeah.
you're in the Halloween mood. It's October. You're in the Halloween mood. You want to watch sort of a scary-ish kind of show, and this fits the bill perfectly. I
I'd like
don't
to see
know.
where it goes and how it fits into the
Yep.
Marvel universe. Like,
Yes.
as far as like I mean, obviously it comes off of Vision and Scarlet Witch or whatever, like WandaVision, but
Yeah.
but still, like there's like lots of questions and things, and they drop like name drop different things throughout it. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how this ends.
Yeah. And I don't know whether this is a limited series, like so that this is just a one season, or if there are going to be more seasons. I kind of feel like it's a one season thing, like
Yeah.
WandaVision was. I kind of hope it is. Like I kind of hope that it's just the one season and they wrap up the whole story in the season. But I don't know it. I haven't heard whether it's a limited series or not. But I'm
You're
100%
all
in.
in.
I'm all in with this one.
Yeah, no, it's good. I love it so far, and it's just I love Marvel stuff, but this show is very solid, like solidly written, solidly acted. Like it's good so far, so it's been
It's
good.
good. And speaking of all in, there's another show that I'm all into
Uh-oh.
that's also superhero based, and it's called The Penguin. Uh, we're flipping to the DC side. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm originally a DC guy, so
yeah,
I'm all about the Batman universe and all of that. So the Batman, the movie that came out, the Matt Reeves movie that came out a couple of years ago I thought was just awesome.
yeah.
It was one of the best Batman movies. So when this series, the spin-off series, the Penguin came out, I thought I've got to see it. It is phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a DC guy. This is like, first of all, and I know you haven't watched it yet, so I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, if you didn't know, if it was called something other than the Penguin, if it was just called like Crime Central,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even know that it's a superhero. Like there's Batman's not in it. Like there's no superhero-y stuff.
Yeah.
It's literally a crime drama, a very violent crime drama. And it's one of the best that I've ever seen. Like, and I said this to Luke the other day. To me, this is Sopranos level good. Like it is
Okay.
the level of like backstabbing and the scare. Like these characters are scary. Like the Penguin is terrifying because he's so unpredictable and he's so like he's got this such a cruel streak and you never know when it's going to come out, but when it comes out, whoo, baby, it's frightening. Like literally I watched the fourth episode last night and I was like literally glued to the TV. Like this, to me, this is top-notch television and probably one of the best things DC has to offer. It's
Yeah.
like I highly recommend this. And Luke, because I know how big a fan of The Sopranos you were,
Yeah.
and even like Scorsese's gangster movies.
Yeah.
This is that level. Like it is unbelievable. It's so good.
I can't wait. Like I enjoyed the last Batman movie. I thought it was really good. Nothing will ever beat for me the 1989 Batman. Like it's just
right.
impossible to do so. But
Yeah.
but anyways, I loved it. I thought it was great. And the Penguin I loved in it. And so I'm really curious to see how this show plays out. But again, when you're watching 31 horror films, it takes up a lot of your time. So I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I still haven't finished watching like Rings of Power or whatever. So I'm still working through that as well.
I haven't even started that one yet.
Yeah.
So,
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's
there's a lot going on. We're all over the board. Anyway, definitely put it on your list.
I will.
It will not disappoint you.
Oh, perfect. I can't wait.
And mark my words,
Oh God, here we go.
Colin Farrell is definitely going to be up for an Emmy for best leading actor. I mark my words.
Okay, we'll see that.
He might even win.
Okay,
Mark my
we'll see.
words.
We'll see. Maybe Golden Globes, maybe because they go a little bit more out there,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
he'll be
We'll
up for
see.
that too. And maybe a Tony Award. I don't know, but he'll
A
be up.
Tony.
Yeah, mark my words. Mark them.
Okay. All right. They've been marked. There's definitely been
Okay.
marked.
All right.
All right. Well, let's just move to the pop capacitor.
Okay.
All right, here we are. It's the pop capacitor. We look at like a TV show or a movie. That's usually what we do. But sometimes we even do video games or toys. And we've never done this before. A print publication, Mad Magazine, which we've never done.
No. And we've actually never done a video game. So we'll have to put that on the list.
Have we not done a video game? I thought we did. Maybe we talked about
No,
a
we
video
did.
game.
No, we did joysticks. A movie.
I guess that was
about-
close enough.
movie about video games.
We've done. Sometimes it's a movie about video games.
Yeah, that's what we've done.
I think we talked about doing one for this season,
Yes,
but we haven't done it yet. Okay,
not yet.
so I'm jumping ahead into the future, but
Yeah.
let's go to the past where Mad Magazine, huge influence on me as a kid, like massive.
Yeah.
And you suggested doing this one, Larry, and I was like, I'm all in on it.
Even though Mad Magazine stopped publication in 2018, sadly, RIP Mad Magazine.
Yep.
They still occasionally put like collected past articles together into new releases. So I happened to be at the grocery store the other day, and of course I saw this. Whoop,
Oh, cool. That's cool.
the Mad Halloween special. It's 96 pages of hilarious horror. And it's all parts of old magazines that they put together to these new. But I mean, I just thought it's Halloween, it's Mad Magazine. I had to own that. So then I thought, you know what? Mad Magazine, like, I mean, I haven't read Mad Magazine in a long time, but I had forgotten how important it was to us as kids. Like we'd forgotten. So when I saw this again and I was flipping through, I'm like, holy cow, like this really was like a big part of our lives in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be fun to revisit.
Yeah, it would. And it's so cool. Like, so I just have a couple things here. It's published in 1952, created by Harvey Kurtzman and William Gaines. And it's basically a satire magazine with like, it's almost like sketch comedy in the form of a magazine, really is what it is. And then of course the iconic Alfred E. Newman, who's over my shoulder right now, was the mascot, with the "What Me Worry" sort of, that was his catchphrase. But there's so many things, like we'll dive into it, but there's so many things in this magazine that as a kid, I don't know what it was about it. It just seemed like it was edgy for a kid to read. And a lot of it probably went over my head for sure.
Oh, totally. At the time, like there was a lot. Like if you're watching the YouTube version of this, you'll see behind me one of their pieces when they were spoofing The Shining. This one's called The Shiner. But there's a lot of text in there. And you know, when this came out in 1980, I would have been too young to have seen the movie. I don't think I would have read this. But the pictures are fun to look at. But I think part of the thing with Mad Magazine for me was that it felt almost forbidden. Do you know what I mean? Because it was kind of gross. It was a little bit it was a lot edgy. It felt like it should be for adults, but kids could read it. And so I think it was almost like, you know, we're doing something wrong by reading this magazine, and it made it even more exciting, even though we didn't quite understand all of the stuff that was in there. But I think that was part of it, is that it was the edginess of it. There was just nothing else like that. I mean, there was National Lampoon's magazine, but this one was different. It had like really edgy stuff, but then it had some light and fun things too. So it had a little something for everybody. But I think that was part of the appeal.
I think that part of the appeal too is that it was very pop culture based. Yes. Like you're like behind you, like the Shining. There's a lot of spoofs of of movies and TV shows we would have watched. Like here's one on it's the issue with aliens.
Yep.
So it's so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And so as a kid, like you may have seen these movies, you may, there's the appeal, and then the artwork too was another whole thing, and we'll get into that. But it was just so well done and so cool. And like, as you know, I've done sketch comedy, and this definitely, as I was going through these issues and that, I'm like, this had huge impact on me, like as far as like how to write comedy, the setups of comedy, like like there's like the mad Richter scale for human beings, and it had, it's just sort of like breaks it down, but they're just like jokes, like they're like, and it really taught you as a kid to how to write a joke, and how to set up a joke and how to make fun of things that you normally would do. And it's like, and I think a lot of my humors come from this magazine that I didn't really notice until we started like digging a little further into it.
It's true. And I think the other thing is that there wasn't anything else that made fun of life the way this magazine did at the time. So, I mean, it wasn't even just, I mean, there's obviously lots of pop culture, and you'd buy the magazine, you'd see Star Wars on there, and you'd be like, oh, I got to buy that issue because it's Star Wars. But there was a lot of, like they had a segment called The Lighter Side of, Dave Berg was the artist for that. And it was always like the lighter side of parenthood, or the lighter side of, shopping, or, things like just everyday things that were like made fun of. So it was relatable too. Like, I mean, obviously we were really young, so not everything related, but it was relatable to people because you lived this life, and it made fun of stuff we do all the time.
Yeah, and things that we like have thought of but haven't like really thought of. Like it's like this stuff that's sort of common that would happen to us, which is funny because now that we talk about this, a lot of those panels and those jokes and the making fun of everyday life is basically like Instagram reels now, like of like people doing these bits of like me checking outside to see when the mailman shows up, like that kind of stuff, like that. Those are just Instagram reels of our time, but at that time, that was the jokes, like they were fresh and they were new and no one has done them, and it was just such a different thing back then. But now everybody just shoots them the same jokes probably and just puts them online.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that there was no online, so there was nowhere else to go to see this sort of stuff. I mean, a good example today is, I don't know if you've watched the Honest Trailers on YouTube. Those Honest Trailers are exactly what Mad Magazine was doing when they were spoofing these movies. So they were like, the Honest Trailers are like the real trailer, like about real movies, but they're mocked, like they're mocking that. And I don't think that stuff like that would have existed without Mad Magazine having done it first. You know what
poking
I mean?
fun at this stuff and breaking down like the weirdness of movies and the funniness of movies that like maybe other people notice, but they were actually like putting it out there, which I thought was kind of cool.
It's really cool. Yep.
I think we should look at some of the features, like some of our favorite features and things that like really like stood out for us.
Yes.
So is there anything that like for you,
well,
like,
I mean, right off the top, anytime I got a new edition, a new issue, I would flip through to the Don Martin cartoons. He was by far my favorite part of Mad Magazine. His style of art was just so weird, and so like people with elongated heads and really
noses and
accentuated features, and they were just, it was so unique. But on top of that was his use of sound effects. Do you remember when people would like get hit with things or like, and they would be, it was like, and this probably was inspired by, well, I don't know, because this was before this. I feel like now I think that the 1966 Batman TV show with its pow and zaps and zowies was probably influenced by this, because here, let me give you a couple of examples of his sound effects. So his sound effects were things like glort, and these were all written out. So they were all like written in words. Glort, patwang fwee. So if there's a ricochet, patang fwee. It's so good. Blorch. That was a good one. If there were frogs in a panel, they would go bree deep. Not ribbit.
God, I remember all these. Glitch was usually when he stepped on something.
Yep, glitch. but they were so brilliant because they actually sounded like what they would E. And apparently, Don Martin's license plate on his car spelled out Stoink. Shtoink. Stoink. He was that famous for his sound effects that he created his license plate. And so they were just so funny to read. So on top
Yeah.
of his art style being so goofy and fun, it just he created this world of like bizarre sounds and images, and it was just by far my favorite part and still is today.
Yeah, so Don Martin was a huge influence on me, like even as like for art. Like I used
Yes,
to like
yes.
I went through a whole Simpsons stage where I learned how to draw Simpsons characters, but before that it was Don Martin characters. And
Yep.
I used to draw them all the time. And I somewhere here I have like a panel or something I've drawn with hit in that style, and I couldn't
Really?
find it. I looked for
Oh,
it. It's somewhere here at the house. I'll find it probably about a month or something going through something, but I
yeah.
have seen it and I couldn't find it. But the I used to draw Don Martin stuff all the time. I figured out how to do his eyes and the
Oh,
noses and the like. I was so into Don Martin's art. And I had a bunch. And I again, you know those things you get rid of and you wish you hadn't. I had a
yeah.
bunch of like collected books of Don Martin's and
Oh,
like just with all the comic strips in the
yeah.
books, like and I don't know what happened to them. Like I probably just got rid of them over time, but I wish I hadn't because his stuff was so good. Like it
Yeah.
was just like funny, good, weird. Like it was just
Weird.
yeah, it was just major influence on me, like in just the style of drawing and everything else and the cartooning portion of it. But I spent like a lot of time like trying to draw like Don Martin, like and draw in that style because it was so cool.
So cool. All right, what's another one for you?
Another one for me is they call them drawn out dramas, and
Oh,
that's it. So in the corner you can see behind you like this the Sergio I can't remember how to pronounce his name
yeah.
Argones
Aragonés.
yeah
Yep.
he drew these tiny little and every like there'd be like a little tiny space
It's
in the comic
right
and he'd
there.
draw like just in the border or
Yeah.
whatever like a tiny little one panel like no dialogue, but usually
Yep.
just like a visual like joke. And
Yes.
they're tiny. They're just tiny little things in the comics, and they're all through it.
Yeah.
And his art was so cool as well. Like he's just such a great artist.
Yeah.
They used to do. He ended up going on to do Gru the Wanderer, which was like a comic book, which went on for quite a few years. And it was like he would draw. That was sort of a spoof of Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
And he drew that for years. Again, that was another one. He still have the first issue of that. Don't have any idea where that went. But I was really into that stuff. And he used to draw. I remember at one point he'd draw these like almost like a Where's Waldo sort of situation, but he'd draw like a ton of people all doing stuff in a photo, and it was like
Oh, yes. Yep.
yeah, and it was so cool looking, and it was
Yes.
like, but he was such a cool artist. I used to love those little things because he'd be reading something else, and right in the corner there'd be like a little like this a little like a little panel. I don't know how he wrote them all or did them all, but it was wild.
And they were everywhere. Like they were like you can see in the one behind me, the Shining. It's a big. There's a lot of text. There's a lot of, and yet they're still in the top corner there, just a
Yeah,
little tiny drawing.
I didn't know what they're
It's
called.
so-
Apparently, they're called drawn out dramas. I didn't know what that was called.
I didn't know. I just always called them margin drawings because they're always in
Yeah,
the.
like they're just in the little spots, but yeah,
Yeah,
he was one of their like top artists for sure, and he
yeah,
did a lot of stuff, and then yeah, he did Gru, and he did like a bunch of other sort of post Mad Magazine sort of art, but yeah, I used to love his stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, he was number two on my list too. So we're on the same page here. And then of course we can't talk about Mad Magazine without talking about Antonio Projas's Spy versus Spy.
Oh my God, Spy
I
versus
think
Spy.
I think whenever anybody thinks of Mad Magazine, aside from Alfred E. Newman, Spy versus Spy is probably one of the
Yeah,
first things you think of.
yeah. Talk about like two characters like or a concept that was lightning in a bottle. Like
Yeah.
just like it was such a like once it got going, it became so popular. Like it's
Yeah.
just basically it's almost like a Tom and Jerry situation. It's just who can get the other, like in some
Yes.
sort of weird trap or
Yeah.
whatever. And it was so well done. I used to love. I was fascinated by the different ways they would get each other and the
Yes.
violent ways they would get each other.
And they were so violent. They're no, but so apparently he was a political cartoonist, like political satirist before he did this, like drawing actual political cartoons
Yeah.
about like Fidel Castro and world leaders, and he was sort of getting in trouble for his drawings because they were very accurate and they were very like damning.
Yeah.
So he kind of had to get out of that, but the Mad Magazine staff really appreciated what he was doing, so they brought him on to do this. And so he was still doing essentially the same thing, except you just had a black spy and a white spy.
Yeah,
And
so cool.
they would kill each other equally. So it wasn't like, the white spy was always winning or the black spy was always winning. They'd always, like every other issue, one of them would be dead. So, it's it was evenly balanced, and every one of them was just more clever than the last. Like it was just, and the thing with those is that there was never any dialogue, never any text. It was
No.
just visuals. So that for us at that age, like 10 years old, or around that, it was so perfect because we didn't need to know that they were political in any way. We didn't need
No.
to know who these guys were. They were just out to get each other and being as clever as they could to kill the other one. and they were always just so bizarre, and like it just made it so easy for kids to relate to it and to understand it and to enjoy it.
Yeah, and there's probably under like different meanings behind some of them or whatever,
Yeah.
but it was like, yeah, it was such a good, like, what a good concept and simple and yet really effective. Did they ever do a movie of Spy versus Spy? I felt like they did.
I don't know if they did a movie, but we'll talk as we go on, we'll talk a little bit more about the spin-off stuff.
Okay.
So we'll get there, but I don't know if they ever did a full-length
I
movie.
thought they did at one point, but like years ago, but I can't remember. Like
Like
I
an
felt like it was like a
animated-
90s thing, but for some reason, or they were going to do one, but I don't
Well,
know.
they did bring back they did bring back Mad in the 90s. Well, I mean, they did have Mad TV that
Yeah.
ran from 95 to 2003 or 2000 and whatever it was. It ran for 14 years, 14 seasons.
Yeah.
And I think that they did have animated segments on there.
Yeah, I do. I think I remember that. Like,
Yeah,
but
maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have more?
yeah, I've got the of course there's one behind us. We'll talk about this right away. Usually the issue is based around a parody.
Yeah.
Which is like there's one behind you. This would be a classic one, like just like the aliens one.
Yeah.
And they like I love the artwork in these. Like it's basically a caricature of these people and they look so real.
Yes.
Mort Ducker did or Drucker did most of the art for these. And he was such a good artist. His art was so precise. It looked like those characters they do on a street. And his art was so good, and everybody looked like the person, the actor. Like he just did. He was such a good artist, and
So
it
good.
really helped. But they were dialogue heavy. Like they were dialogue heavy scripts.
They are. And I mean, you can see from the one behind me, there's a lot of text in there. But the other thing is, I'm going to slide over. So if you're watching this, you can see like he's drawn actual scenes from the movie, from The Shining. Like you'll remember the scene in the office where they're talking originally, the scene in the Volkswagen where they're driving up. They're actual scenes from the movies that they put in here, and then they just change the dialogue to spoof the
them, or
but if there's there's the front, like this, there's Quasimodo in the front lobby. But that was the fun thing, is that if you knew the movie that they were spoofing, it was like watching a movie, because again, in the 80s, in the early 80s, we didn't even have VHS really at that point. I mean,
No.
it was there, but not many people that I knew had VHS. So it was like you could watch the movie again in your hand, by flipping the pages. It was a totally different story, but
yeah, but they was like totally storyboarded and they look great. It was like rewatching it. Like the art was so strong, and you can see like over your shoulder, but it was like just so strong that it was like you get sucked into it because everybody looked like the people from the movie, and it was like it was like well written and like satire obviously, or spoofing of that movie, and finding the little bits of the movie that they could make fun of and whatnot.
And while we're talking about this, so when they obviously did parodies of Star Wars, because that was a big thing to do, apparently Lucasfilm at the time tried to sue them for use of their characters. However, George Lucas himself loved the parodies. He loved what they were doing with his work.
Okay, that's cool.
I think it was almost like a bit of a badge of honor if your movie got parodied in Mad Magazine. That's kind of like, oh, I must be doing all right.
Yeah.
If my movie's big enough that they're going to parody it, I'd be okay with that.
That was sort of the anchor to me of the magazine, as far as like every issue had some sort of like spoof at the beginning of a movie that we've seen, or like that was sort of like usually the cover had to do with that as well.
Yeah,
But
and the cover art is often what would draw you in because it would be a spoof of whatever movie it was going to be, and the artwork on the cover was usually of that
yeah.
movie, and it was such a cool looking cover that you kind of want the cover.
Yeah.
You'd want it for the cover,
Except for this cover, which is like a Don Martin cover.
that doesn't count.
And this one they have this issue is a for her thighs only.
Of course it is. So I'm just flipping through the Halloween edition that just came out. So this is they're doing the Bland Witch Project.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
The Bland Witch Project. And then it's like all the, about the Blair Witch Project. So yeah, I mean it's just endless number of movies that they would spoof, and they were just so good. They were so good.
It's just great. Like,
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy all of that. Now, having said that, I don't know how many of them I like read back in the day because they would have been movies that I hadn't seen or didn't know about.
yeah, like I remember one specific issue had Kramer versus Kramer, which I had never seen, so I didn't really know what that was. So
exactly. So I don't know how many of them I read, but I know that I looked at every picture on every page. I don't know how I read the stories, but I'd always look again because you might catch a little Sergio Aragonés margin drawing on one of the pages. So you had to look. You had to look. Yeah, that was so good. Do you have more?
Well, the other one, I mean, it's a pretty obvious one, is the Mad Fold-In.
Oh yes.
Like
I was going to try something live. I don't know how well this is going to work because of the limitations of Zoom, but because I've got the new magazine right here, I have yet to fold in the fold-in. So I thought, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah, it might disappear on us.
It might work. It might not work, but I thought it would be fun. And it was always a question at the top. This one is, what special spirit seems to inspire today's nutty fashions? That was the question. You'd be like, I don't know. And then they'd have this big long statement at the bottom.
Yeah.
Where they try to answer it. It's not going to work. They try to answer it. So the answer is, happy high-spirited youth today is following its heart in the uninhibited wearing of the wildest styles ever seen. So that's the answer until you fold the page. Let me do it real quick here. Hold on. Let me do it real fast. You fold the page, and in fact, the real answer is Halloween.
Look at that.
It's a jack-o'-lantern.
Yep.
And it says Halloween right there at the bottom.
Well, I remember when I used to get those Mad Fold-ins, I'd try to figure out what it was before I folded it. Yeah. And it was tough. Like they have a lot of detail in it. So when you fold it, it obviously becomes something completely different. But I was always trying to figure out on the sides, okay, what would this be like? And it was always kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't think there's an issue of Mad that doesn't have it folded, you know what I mean? Like it's like everyone had to try the Mad Fold-In. Like it was always what a cool interactive bit of the magazine. Like
that was so
whoever
smart.
came up with that is brilliant. And whoever puts them together is that's a lot to try to think of and try to draw it in such a way that it actually works every time.
They were Al Jaffe, who's another one of their star artists. Al Jaffe work was amazing because it was all kind of not realistic, but shiny and bubbly, and it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
But Al Jaffe's work was great, and I believe that he was the one who did all of the Mad Fold-ins. So his artwork was always so good, but that's got to be hard to come up with just the logistics, just how to
draw it so that it would actually fold and become something every time. But some are obviously better than others, but they're always cool. I always loved them.
Like, I wonder if he started with the page folded and did that picture and then opened it up and filled in the stuff in between. That would make more sense. I feel like
Yeah,
that's
yeah, maybe that's how he did it. I don't know.
yeah,
Like, I mean, you have to have a basic idea, but it's like
yeah. I don't know.
of what
I
he's gonna.
love Mad Folders were just the best. I totally agree.
You were talking spin-offs too and things after that.
So, in 1974, they created a half-hour animated TV show that was
Oh
called the
wow.
Mad Magazine TV special, and it never aired.
Oh,
But it was a full half hour long, and the reason it never aired was because the first spoof like segment on there made fun of automakers, like the big three automakers made fun of that, and so the studios thought, well, we can't put this to air because the big three automakers are like our livelihood. They sponsor
yeah.
advertising our shows. We can't make fun of them, so it never aired. However, somebody got a hold of it, and it is on YouTube, and I've watched it probably 3 or 4 times. So
Okay.
maybe we could try to remember to put a link to it on our Facebook page, because it's amazing. It is so funny, and it is exactly like the magazines. They have Spy versus Spy. They have like a movie. The movie spoof that they have in this one is The Odd Father. So
Okay.
it's awesome. Like, it is so well done. It's the exact same artwork, and it's the full spoof that you would get in the magazine. Like, everything in the magazine is in this half-hour show, but
Oh,
it's
cool. I'm
just
gonna have to check that
but
out. I've
it's
never seen it. That's
it's
good.
yeah, it's animated. You'll love it. Now, just keep in mind that it came out in 1974,
Yeah, so it'll be
and
great,
it was
but
it was a spoof, so it's not. There are scenes that are very not politically correct anymore.
yeah.
So just keep that in mind if you watch it. But if you love Mad Magazine, you need to see this thing, because I really wish it had worked out, that they had been able to keep going with this, because I think it would have been really funny. But it never made it to air, and you'll know that because there are scenes in it where it says the Mad Magazine TV special is brought to you by, and
I
then
just
there's just
leaves
a
it.
blank
Yeah.
where they would have it's where they would have put the sponsor if they had gotten one.
Yeah, that's
So,
hilarious.
yeah, but it's completely finished. It's all done. It looks beautiful, and it's there. So definitely check that out, because that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. That sounds cool.
Yeah. And then, of course, like we had already mentioned, in the mid 90s, they launched Mad TV, which I happen to really like. I know Loop wasn't as big a fan,
I wasn't a huge fan of it, but
but
there was
I
people on it that I liked. Like there was a lot of great talent came from that show.
there was
Um,
people just well, some people, Phil Lamar started there, Jordan Peele, Keegan Michael Key was
yeah,
on there, Alex Borstein. It spawned a lot of big careers. So it did a lot. And I used to love it. It ran for 14 seasons. I didn't
I can't
realize it.
believe it was on that long. Like it was something about the way things were shot on it. I didn't like the studio stuff or whatever. And I was a big In Living Color fan, and this show just didn't seem as good, and I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, and I just loved it. I still do. I still will YouTube Stewart.
Oh my God, I couldn't
I
stand
think Stewart
Stewart.
is awesome. Look what I can do. He's so funny. I
It
love
did
him.
have some good people on it. I just never could get into it, and I don't know why. And I love sketch comedy, but that show, there's something about the way it was shot or done, I
You
think the
should,
jokes were just too in your face and too broad. Like it was too obvious. Like I think, and I just got bored of it really quick.
you should go back and rewatch some of them on YouTube and see if it's changed for you.
Yeah, maybe.
I'd be curious to know,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Like if I watch Key and Peele, it's hilarious. So I don't know where I don't know. It was hard to say. I'd have to revisit it. So
just give it a shot. Give it a shot.
14 seasons, though. Eh? Holy cow.
14 seasons. Now, I do remember it really went downhill in quality after about the first 5 seasons.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, the early seasons were the best. That's when you had the Alex Borstein as Miss Swan, Bunny Swan.
yeah.
He looked like a man. So good. And Stewart and who was Michael McDonald, I believe his name was, and all that. But then it kind of went downhill fairly quickly after that. So just watch the early seasons and just pretend,
Okay,
pretend
I'll
it was
give it
only
another shot.
give it another go around. And then there was one more revival, and now I don't remember the dates. That was more geared towards younger kids. I believe it might have even been a Nickelodeon show. And it was sort of like it was referred to as Robot Chicken for kids.
Okay.
Because it was sort of all animated, but some of it was like claymation and stop motion and like traditional animation, but it was all mad stuff. So like Spy versus Spy, and I don't think we got it in Canada. I'd never heard of this before. I'd never seen it. I'm sure I would have watched it if we had access to it.
Yeah.
So that was another sort of run at it in the I'm gonna say even late 90s, early 2000s, or maybe the 2000s. But yeah, so they've tried a few times to launch it, and the Mad TV lasted a fairly long time, but none of them compared to this 1974 TV special. It is the
I'm gonna
most,
check that out. It sounds
yeah,
interesting. Like I didn't know they had done one.
yeah, it is the
Um,
most like the magazine of anything they've done.
that's cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's just like wrap up and just talk about like any like your memories of it or anything that you like what like I remember just like as it was out, I subscribed to it for a little while. So I had a subscription. And I used to collect them. Again, I got rid of almost all my Mad magazines, and it's so annoying because I collected them for so long. But I remember going to like garage sales and flea markets, and someone would have a big stack, and then you try to
Yeah,
find the issues you're missing.
yeah.
I had so many, like I had just so many Mad magazines, and again, got rid of them all. And I wish I would have kept them, but now I'm almost inspired to start collecting them
I
again. But
know. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, here's a new collection we could start.
yeah, God.
Um, for me, it was in the summers, my family and I would travel. We'd go to a lot of state parks in the United States and drive. We would drive
Yeah.
everywhere, like for 2 or 3 weeks every summer. We'd go on road trips to these parks and like state parks and all of that. Before every trip, my mom would buy me a Mad magazine for
Oh,
the
that's
car.
cool.
I was a little kid and I'd sit in the back and I would just be sitting there for all these like 10-hour drives or whatever. So I'd get a Mad magazine before every big road trip, and that was like the most exciting thing. And I never picked them out. She would get them for me, so I guess it was whatever she chose. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I was introduced to it. Was that was my entertainment for every summer road trip was at least one Mad magazine, sometimes two. But that's how I associated Mad with growing up because
Yeah,
they
I probably bought my first one at like again like at a garage sale or whatever, and then you just
that's
sort of
awesome.
really like, oh, this is kind of cool. Then you start like getting more of them, and
Yep.
but like they were highly collectible. Like at the like back in the day, like there was a lot of like they're just as a kid, like you just loved it and you ate it up like for whatever reason. But because they're kind of like comics, but a little bit higher like
Yeah.
intelligence than comics, right? Like they're just like spoofing stuff
Exactly.
and
Oh, and
whatever.
one other thing I want to mention that makes this magazine really interesting and different, and I think appealing to us. There are no ads. Mad
Oh
Magazine
yeah, that's right. I never
never
there
never
was never
had
ads in it.
no, it never had advertising in it, which meant that every page was something
Something.
fun. Like
Yeah.
you didn't get stuck with like a perfume ad or a car ad or anything. There were no advertising like there are in comics. Like in
Yeah.
comics, there are like a couple of pages of ads or promotions for another comic. There were never any ads in Mad Magazine, mostly because they the creators decided if they wanted to get advertising in there, they would have to up the quality of their magazine, like actual physical quality, like get shiny paper,
Yeah.
because advertisers want to advertise in like Time magazine and National Geographic and these glossy, beautiful magazines. Well, theirs is all flat paper and black and white, most of it, just ink and
Yeah.
paper. So they're like, well, we'd have to, it would cost more. We wouldn't be making as much money, and we don't want to do that. This is what we want. This is our thing. So their only source of income was people buying the magazine because
Yeah.
they never had
Plus,
that
it'd be
extra.
hard to make fun of stuff. Like if there was something they
Yes,
could like Coke or something, and there was an advertiser, they would be kind of off limits. And it's like, and they sort of open themselves up to anything that they could make fun of.
that's
And
right. So, but I hadn't thought about that until I read it recently. I thought, You know what? There were. That's right. There were no
Yeah,
ads.
I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's hilarious.
So that was a fun thing too, that we never had to deal with advertising.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as like, I mean, as a magazine, like the satire and there was nothing like it. And also it did spawn a bunch of like Cracked magazine,
Yep.
Crazy magazine. And there might
Yes.
have even been another one too. Like I'm sure there was like another like a fourth or whatever. But the
Yeah.
Cracked was sort of like it wasn't quite on the level of Mad. It
But it
had
was
that
pretty
like
close.
yeah,
It
it
was
was
pretty
getting there, but
close.
it never had anything that I can remember from Cracked that really
No.
like they didn't have a spy versus spy or anything like
I used to read Cracked a fair bit, like because my parents would get me a Cracked every once in a while too, and I remember really liking it. But you're right, like there was no Don Martin, and there was no like
yeah.
Aragones. Like, there wasn't anything that I can remember. I mean, maybe if I went back and read it again, I'd be like, oh right, they had this, but nothing that stands out in my head. But
Well, but
Mad
even
Men,
as a kid, I always felt like it was inferior. Like I felt like it
yes,
was a copy of Mad Magazine. Like and
yeah,
it was just not quite as good version. I remember there was like a Crazy magazine. Marvel may have put that out. I don't
yeah,
know if somebody did, but I remember it was another one. And it's like we're starting to really stretch it thin here, guys. It's like
yeah. Give it up. Mad has cornered the market on spoofs. That's it.
yeah, and probably just television and sketch comedy shows
Yeah.
and like satire generally, like Saturday Night Live and that. I think it probably just killed the magazine after a while. It's hard to, and just like print media is sort of dying as it like over the years as it is. So it's probably what kind of killed it eventually.
Well, I mean, the fact that it ran from 1952 to 2018,
That's pretty good run.
that's a really good run.
Yeah.
And that they're still releasing compilation magazines for the holidays and for special occasions. So you can still pick it up.
Yep.
But that's a huge run. I mean, that's that's a long time. They managed to without advertising.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sad that like my kids never really read it and never got influenced like we did with it. But
Yeah.
again, it's a different era. Like they're influenced by like TikToks and stuff, and we're influenced by what we had, and which wasn't TikToks. It was like Mad Magazine. So
Was
it was
this?
yeah. So it just had such a big influence on me as again like as comedy and writing and all that kind of stuff. So I have to tip my hat to it for sure. It was
Yeah.
such a good magazine, like so
So,
funny.
so the question is, does it still hold up?
Oh God, yeah, like by
Yeah,
far.
yeah, it does.
Like yeah, now I want to kind of go back and like I love this having like this aliens issue. Like I did, it's like
Yes.
and then this isn't like this is one I bought fairly recently. I was somewhere and I saw a couple and I just picked them up, but the just because I hadn't read a Mad magazine in so long, so I was like, oh, I should grab that. So it's like the I'm glad I did. I now I'm like, hey, should I
I
buy a
know.
few more? But they're probably a lot harder to find now because back then it was like they were easy to find at garage sales and easy to find at flea markets and like there's always somebody with a stack of them. But
Yeah.
now they're just not as like
Well,
no one
and
they're
I
not as
feel
out
like
there.
I'd probably only want to collect the ones that have spoofs of movies that I really like. Like if
Yeah.
there's an Indiana Jones or a Star Wars or a, whatever, I wouldn't pick up the Kramer versus Kramer edition.
And really, do I really need them? Probably not at this point.
No,
But
not really, no.
uh,
But why do we collect anything that we collect? I
yeah,
don't
we
know.
don't
We
need
don't
any
need
of
any
it.
of
But
it.
it's like
We don't need any of it. We just want it. Yeah.
it's more just because it's like we used to have it, and now we can afford to rebuy it again and own
Yes,
it. Like,
exactly.
but where do I put it? That's another whole story as well because I have nowhere to put anything anymore. So I'm like, I'm running out of house
Yep. That's exactly it.
collectible space, as I like
Yep.
to call it. So
Yep.
that's hilarious. Well, that's awesome. That's great. That was a great pick. I love talking about Mad. Like it was such a cool magazine, and I
Yes.
actually like learned a lot about myself. Like just looking back at it, like how much it did influence me, and it was so cool. So, anyways, that's Mad Magazine. That's it.
Yep. Still holds up.
What
Still
in our
fun.
next episode, we got something pretty cool happening too.
Yep. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a new season of Loop and Larry if we didn't have our very special guest, David Weiner, on the show talking about a new horror documentary. So
Yes.
we're really excited that he's going to be back on the show for our next episode with a brand new decade of horror to talk about. So because it's going to be still in Matt's Loop's favorite month will still be on when we're doing this. So it's right in line with the October, and it's going to be great. It's very exciting. So stay tuned for that, because that will be the next episode coming up soon.
That's right. You can always get a hold of us on our socials. If you ever have a suggestion of something you want us to watch or whatever, or an old movie or something, like a new different subject matter, like send it to us. Like we'll probably do it if we can get a hold of it or talk about it. So definitely send that to us. All the information's up on the screen right now. So thanks for joining us for another episode of Loop and Larry Gardens of Geek on our quest to make 100 episodes. I've decided this is a quest now. I decided this is like, we need to do this season. I think we can. I'd hate to be like 4 episodes shy of 100 this season. We're close. Like we can make this.
We are literally going to toss out a couple 5-minute episodes. I guarantee. Right at the end of the season, we're going to be like at.
Well, we got an Oscar 96. Episode at some point. We got episodes. There'll be episodes
we're happening. Like 96, and we're going to be 4 away, and Luke's going to be like, "We got to do it. We got to do it." And we'll be like, "Hey, how was your day today? Great, mine too. Terrific." And that's Loop and Larry. Bye bye.
See you next time.
That counts.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, all right? Like it's all right. Thanks for joining us on Loop and Larry Gardens of Geek. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. Fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.